Welcome to the Self-Publishing School podcast. This is the podcast to listen to if you're an aspiring writer or an author who wants to be more successful. On this show, you'll learn how to write and launch a book successfully, all from the top authors and people just like you who are doing it at the highest level. I'm your host, Chandler Bolt, the founder of Self-Publishing School, the author of the book called Published, and the CEO of selfpublishing.com. For free training on how to publish a book that sells 10,000 copies, go to selfpublishing.com/free training. Hey, Chandler Bolt here, and joining me today is Jonathan Hardy. Jonathan is the co-founder of Leaders.Church and Church University, two online platforms to help pastors master their ministry and leadership skills. He's also the author of the upcoming book, very exciting. It's called Arrow Striker. All right. So we're going to be talking about behind the scenes of this book, how to grow your ministry or your faith-based business using a book. And if you're watching on the YouTube channel, we're going to be doing it from, this is one of the best. This is like the Chip and Joanna Gaines, just major. I'm jealous of this aesthetic that Jonathan's got going on right now. But so we're in for a treat. Jonathan, welcome. Great to have you.
Well, thank you. I can't take credit for any of it, but I appreciate the compliment. So I'll pass that on to my wife. And,
I'm in the middle of a renovation on my first home right now. So these are mark this down on a list of things that I never thought that I would notice. And I guess I never did notice until now.
That's funny. That's awesome. Well, I appreciate the time and look forward to the chat.
Yeah, glad to have you here. So I guess let's start with this. You've been in ministry for 15 years. I guess started on pastoral staff at a church and built that up to thousands of people in weekly attendance. So you've got that ministry side, and then now you've got the more faith-based business side with Leaders.Church and a Church University. So why a book, and why now for this book specifically?
Well, there's a lot to that, but because this is a faith-based book, and I recognize not everyone listening might be they have the different faith backgrounds and such, but for me, this is a mission that I feel like I'm supposed to tap into and step into. It really goes back to 15 years ago. I even hate to admit that the idea for this book came 15 years ago. I just sat on it. One day the chapter outline just basically came, just cranked it out, and then I sat on it. And every so often ideas would come. I'd go intersperse some thoughts and had this running Word document, but I never took action on it. And up until about a couple of years ago, and then I just was really feeling prompted, just in my personal prayer time, that I need to do this. I need to get this thing out. I got to stop talking about it. My friends and family are probably sick of me talking about, oh yeah, when I write a book someday, blah blah blah. It's time to go. And so that began a journey of me saying, okay, hey, let's do this. And I went back, pulled up the document, and just started working on it. And so the whole why behind this really goes to, I felt like I was supposed to. And the book is a very unique book. It's titled Arrow Striker, and my subtitle is Live with Purpose and Leave an Eternal Impact Every Single Day. And I based it on a story in the Bible, and it's like a real small Bible story in the Old Testament that just popped out of nowhere one day for me. And it was just like I had this divine download. It was like, there's a book here off this story, and so that was kind of the really the genesis of it for me, and why I've now gotten it into writing.
And so let's maybe touch on that for a second. Was there an inflection point, or what spurred you after 15 years of kind of having this in the background, or I guess how many ever years of having this in the background? What was the kick to say, all right, I talk about this in the beginning of this book, which I'm pretty sure I've seen you post a picture with.
You're right.
Maybe we'll mention that later. But
I have the blue version.
Oh, you got the blue version. Oh man,
yeah.
I didn't ship you a new version, or did it get lost in your old home? We'll get you we'll get you the second edition.
All right.
And for those who aren't on the YouTube channel, this is my book, Published, the second edition. It's The Proven Path from Blank Page to 10,000 copies sold. So what spurred that on? In the beginning of that book, I talk about, it's important that you have a why, and then it's important that you have a why now. And
Hmm.
it seems like you had a why behind that book, but then there was a why now that made it prevalent. What was that?
Yeah. Um, I think in hindsight, it was good that I sat on it for a while, because at the time I was 25. Now, time of this recording, I'm 40, and so a lot of life experience has happened since then. And so it really was these last couple years. Actually, really during the season of COVID, I think was a big part of, life just changed for everybody, and I think that was a point for me to say, okay. Um, what's next here and what does this look like, and as you mentioned, we were actually part of helping start a church. We had moved from Springfield, Missouri to Kansas City, Missouri, and so we'd been living there for at the time 6-7 years, and uh, and I had stopped doing my more in-depth roles that I was doing originally when we helped start the church, and so that began the journey of, okay, what's next for us, what's next for our family, what's next for me. And of course, in the back of my mind this whole time, I'm thinking, I got to write a book, I got to write a book. And I don't think I really had any revelation, so to speak. It was just one day, or a series of days. I just got to the point where I said, you know what, now feels like this is the time, and there's no better time than now. And I've got a lot of other ideas. And so I'm like, well, I mean, if I'm ever going to get going on this, you just have to start. And so that really was like the catalyst for me to say, okay, now's the time. And because of COVID and the uniqueness of that, I was able to use some of the downtime to get away and have some writing seasons and just crank it out.
Cool. Now,
Yeah.
you're obviously you're in ministry, and or you were in ministry, and now you run a faith-based business. So I think it probably seems pretty obvious that the book would be overtly faith-based. And we work with a lot of
Sure.
authors. It's who write faith-based books. I'm a Christian. My brother plays in Need to Breathe. So I think there's a natural connection
Sure.
into the faith-based community there. But how I think this is something that a lot of people struggle with is how much of my faith do I put in my book? And
Yeah.
again, it kind of feels like maybe it was for you, maybe it wasn't. That for you it might be kind of obvious and straightforward. But did you ever wrestle with, okay, do I go fully faith-based? Do I go partially? Do I include some of it, all of it? Or how did you kind of come to the conclusion of writing it the way that you did?
Yeah. For me, it was pretty clear that this is all in faith based. I felt like the whole book concept is unashamedly, it's geared toward the Christian audience. Now, with that said, I know we actually gave a kind of a pre-release copy to a local friend, who's kind of just not real into Christianity. And I think it would be applicable because the whole idea, really, without going into the details of the story, is making a difference. And the story in the Old Testament is about this guy who was the king of Israel, who was supposed to strike his arrows, and it was this figurative representation of the physical battle victories that they were going to get. But what happened is he stopped and he gave more of a half-hearted effort. And so I take that concept and say, hey, we need to figuratively strike our arrows every chance we have to make a difference. And so it's clearly geared toward making a difference from a spiritual standpoint. But a person who's not of faith could still easily read it and say, oh, you know what, there's things I could do. I could give to a charity, I could do this, I could do that, I could, and ways to make a difference. And so while it's all the language is very spiritual, it's definitely one of those things that anyone could read it and be like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, I think that there's some good thoughts there. So at least
Mm.
that's my hope.
Yeah, for sure. So, and I think sometimes where people might get frustrated is when it feels like the bait and switch. And so kind of what you're
Yeah.
saying is, I mean, if you just read the first line of your book description on Amazon, is God has more he wants to do through you, right?
Yeah.
God longs to intimately know people and give them abundant life. So it's very clear, like, okay, this is a
Yeah.
Christian faith-based book. And then, if people
Yes.
want to buy it and read it and aren't of faith, they can still get value of it, but they're not going to feel like they were baited and switched, and it's kind of tucked in there and they didn't know what they were purchasing, which I think is sometimes important.
Hmm.
What would be your advice for people who maybe it isn't so straightforward? How much of their faith do they include or not? Any thoughts on just how people can discern that?
For me, it's probably, with the way I would roll, it's more of a matter of prayer. And how do you feel led? What seems to just come naturally? What seems to resonate with what you're saying? Because there's definitely ways you can incorporate concepts of having an impact or whatever that looks like without being um, super overt. And there's a lot of biblical principles in life or that are applicable just to life in general. Whether you're talking about sowing and reaping, or being encourager, or generosity, or you can just go down the list of just things that you can do. And so you wouldn't necessarily have to do that, but I think it's really more of like that gut
Yeah.
intuition. What do you feel like you should do, and how much? I don't think there's a
Mm.
right or wrong, or it's probably very subjective to that, what you feel like you want to communicate.
Yeah.
So
That's great.
yeah.
That's cool to hear your perspective. I think it's been interesting seeing my brother's band navigate that over the years with Need to Breathe.
Sure.
I think their perspective, because I think everyone has different callings, right? It's like if I feel
Right.
like, hey, I am writing an in the pocket faith-based book to my congregation or to people who follow my work, that's a different calling than, okay, hey, I want to introduce people to faith who maybe not would
Exactly.
have not otherwise seen it, right? And so I
Yeah.
think it's, as it relates to Need to Breathe, and how I've seen them kind of do it is they said, hey, they grew up in an era where it was just like Christian music just sucked. It wasn't good.
Yeah.
Like our parents were like, hey, you can't listen to anything with Christian music. And my
Yeah.
brother, it was kind of like, well, but it sucks. Like I don't want to
Yeah,
listen to just
exactly.
this music. And the impetus was, the founders of the band were their parents were just like, okay, if you don't like it, make something better.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they said, all right, we will. And then their whole, what they felt like their calling is, hey, let's go into places where in the bars, the clubs, the places where this
Sure.
message isn't getting there, and then be that light. And some of them
Yeah.
are overtly faith-based songs like Testify or like Multiplied or Difference Maker or any of those songs,
Yeah.
but it's in a place where, and so I think that's just interesting because
Yeah.
both can work as long as you're upfront about what you're doing and lean in and pray about what your calling is and what you're writing about. So that's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you're just straight up and you're not trying to do, like you said, the bait and switch, I think then people, it's very clear. I mean, that's why, like you read, like basically the description of my book. It's like, this is very clear. Either this is
Yeah.
going to apply to you or not,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, so I
Cool.
love that.
Hey, Chandler Bolt here. I hope you're loving this episode so far. It's time to go from inspiration to implementation. All right, so if you've learned something, we want to help you implement what you've learned with your book. So what I want you to do right now is go to selfpublishing.com/schedule, book a publishing consultation with one of the experts on my team. We'll talk about your goals for your book, your dreams, your challenges, your next steps, and we'll start putting together a plan. All right, so go to selfpublishing.com/schedule, book a call with the team. Let's see how we can help with your book. It's time to implement.
What, Jonathan, what's been the hardest part so far of getting the book written and ready to publish? What was the hardest part in that process, and what did you learn from that?
Um, well, the getting started part of which was what we already talked about, just getting going. And I'll give you a little plug. Your concept, I'm drawing a blank on maybe how you would call it, but basically the circle in the middle, and then you've got all the spokes around. That was a game changer for me.
Cool.
Because once I started doing that, things just started to flow way faster and way more quickly, but then maybe more efficiently, effectively. And it made the content, I felt like, richer. And so that was a pivotal turn for me, that maybe, and I'm a perfectionist. And so before I was doing that, I would write, and then I'd go back and I'd rewrite, and then, and it just was taking a lot longer. But then once I kind of figured out how to mind map that whole chapter and then go back and start, maneuvering stuff around, that really sped things up.
Yeah.
The other the other roadblock I had was it took me a long time to decide, am I going to self-publish or am I going to try to shop this?
Mm-hmm.
And I wasted probably too much time on that, to be honest with you. And so, the end result, our company, the business that I co-own with my father, we ended up deciding that we are going to be the publisher of the book. My dad's written 2 books previously that are more ministry related. Mine's more just geared toward Christians in general. And so we're going to kind of go back and work on updating those. They're a little bit older. And so we're thinking, well, our company kind of can be this, publisher. But there's always that dream of like, well, what if you could get a big contract, and it's one of those things where I just was like, well, why not give it a try? So I spent a lot of time. There's a very well-known Christian author, and who worked with this agent. Actually, this agent has a lot of well-known Christian authors. So I thought, man, I'm going to shoot for the moon. And so it just took me a while to get a conversation and to hear back. And then we would have a conversation, and there was just big delays in follow-up. And so I actually had the book fully edited in the summer of 2021. And it really wasn't till basically February of 22 before I was like, okay, I'm going self-publish. I'm getting my own designer. I'm running with this thing. So I wasted some time, admittedly, there. And I think that was a learning lesson. But I was having trouble making a decision. And I don't know why. Looking back now, I'm very thankful for the route I've taken. So I don't regret it, and maybe that's just part of, you just gotta figure it out, and you gotta figure out what's going to be best for you. And so it just took me a while. So, but those are a couple things that come to mind immediately.
Cool. Nice. And how did you ultimately make that decision to go self-publish? Or I guess technically self-published, but or technically published with a publisher, but kind of hybrid type publishing?
Yeah, I mean, really, we're all, it's basically us publishing it, but we went, this is a sidebar, but we went the route where we pre-printed books versus the KDP route. But to make that decision, I think I needed to get to the point where I was kind of done trying to get the contract. And I just had to get to that point where I was running the numbers, and I'm thinking, okay, well, if I could get this size of contract, then it could be worth it. And so I'm playing the numbers game, and I sought counsel from some people, and one of my buddies, he said, well, what's the math say? I mean, it was just down to the math. And I thought, well, I think the math is saying, based on what I know, that I need to self-publish. So granted, there's more upfront cost, but the back end is, there's a brighter upside, and I still have control. And I have a lot of branding potential with the phrase Arrow Striker. And so I'm already working on additional resources that are going to accompany the book. So
on the IP,
because of that,
IP.
because of that, I felt like it was probably best,
that makes sense.
at least for now.
Yeah. What, any advice from the road ahead for other people who are thinking, hey, do I self-publish? Do I traditionally publish? Kind of knowing what you know now. What would be your advice for other people in your shoes?
Yeah. I'm a big fan of the self-published route. I mean, obviously we all know if you've got a massive platform and you think you can get a contract, hey, maybe it's worth it. Of course, I haven't experienced that yet, so I can't speak to that. We have a decent sized platform with our online business that we have that helps pastors and churches. And so I kind of had that hope that, well, maybe I'd be able to get something. But we never got that far in the process. And so for me, I'm a definite fan of self-publishing. I have some friends that went the KDP route, and they seem to have had really good success with that. And so I can't speak to that really either, since we didn't end up doing that. But what I love about the self-publishing is the full control. You still own the rights. And I have a buddy who was in a different genre, but he had published a book, and he said it was really hard to be able to get the publisher to do some things he wanted to do, because he had a back end business related to his book. And so he was thinking, man, if I could give these away, 99 cents, whatever, just to
Yeah.
be able to use that as a lead generator. And it wasn't easy.
Yeah.
I
It's
don't
definitely
have a massive business beyond just trying to give value and motivate people to go all out in their walk with God. I mean, I've got these supplemental resources I'm creating. But my book is geared toward, like I said, just Christians, whereas our online business is more toward pastors. So there's like some overlap,
I
but
see.
it, a guy like you might pick the book up and say, oh yeah, good read, maybe get some nuggets out of it. It could be valuable to you, but you're not going to want to go buy my, Leaders.Church pastor resource necessarily. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of working on two tracks a little bit.
Yeah.
And the things I'm doing to overlap them are, I don't know if I should jump into this, but I'm creating a sermon series that a pastor could use,
Oh,
and
cool.
kind of like a kit. So they
That's
could,
really
they
smart.
could, they could, I hope so. They could, do a sermon series, and it's an Arrow Striker sermon series, 3 or 4 weeks. And then we would sell bulk boxes of books that they could either give away, or they could we give discounts, and then they could sell them and recoup their cost. And so there's some other things. We have another 6-part video series that I'm shooting, I think, in about a week, that's going to be for, small groups, Bible studies, those types of things, where then it's supplemental. So it's not a regurgitation. It's, taking some of the concepts, but then going deeper, taking different
That's
angles
cool.
of it. So I'm trying to create this overall package. And then I've
Smart.
already got I've wanted to do kids books. I've already got a kids book idea.
Cool.
I'm building the brand. I'm building the brand a little bit.
Yeah. So it's
so-
overlap, not directly related.
It is.
And then using finding the sweet spot in the marketing to both market to the overlap, but then also gear more towards pastors, so that it'll, I'm assuming, be more beneficial for the business and all that good
Yeah.
stuff. And just backing up just a little bit, for those who aren't familiar, Jonathan mentioned the KDP, that's Kindle Direct Publishing, which is when you self-publish, you can print directly through Amazon and through their publishing arm of Kindle Direct Publishing, so KDP. You alluded to this a little bit, but I'd love to hear more of how you're tying this book in with your business. It sounds like it's maybe it's like you said, it's overlap, not directly related. Are you tying it into the business? If so, how much? And do you ever have plans in the future to write kind of like the Leaders.Church book, or the Church University book that's directly applicable to that business?
So my main thing to tie them together is to really work on figuring out who these pastors are that are buying the book, and then try to move them over into additional resources. Now, our main list, email list of people that we have, obviously we're going to be marketing to them to buy bulk, or individually if they want, or like I said, sermon series and stuff like that. We've even thought about some giveaways where if they would, do something, then they might be able to get like a free membership to Leaders.Church for 6 months or whatever. So they'd be able to access that, or one of our Church University courses. So it's just trying to figure out, how can I move people, because I have these 2 tracks, figuring out who those people are that I can then move over to the Leaders.Church track for future business growth, while at the same time moving people over to the Christian track that, we could try to get them to buy the supplemental resources. But yes, to answer your last question, I do have a lot of other book ideas, and some of the ones that are ministry related specifically, and we've got some practical nuggets. I've got some church leadership related book ideas. And that really goes directly in line with our business, Leaders.Church, because that business is designed to help pastors be better leaders in a nutshell. And so I've already been kind of just scribbling notes on that.
That makes sense.
So, and I'll get there, but I figured I
Yeah.
better try to get one book off the ground first,
Oh, for sure. For sure. And I think that probably relates to what you were talking about with redoing some of your dad's books as well.
Yep,
Which
exactly.
makes a lot of sense. So
Yeah.
maybe let's talk about book launch. So at the time of
Cool.
this interview going live, guys, the book is either on pre-order if you're like one of those people that just saw it immediately as this podcast interview came out, or as this YouTube video hit the YouTube channel, or it's on sale. If it's more than a few days after this is released, it's on sale. So you can grab a copy of the book, Arrow Striker. But can you talk to me about what are you doing to prep for launch and to launch the book successfully? Like, what are maybe the top 3 areas that you're focusing your efforts?
Okay. Yeah. First one is I'm trying to build the launch team, and we've got, because of our network of people, we've got a lot of opportunity there, I think, and because our network of people are pastors of the people in their churches, if we get them, sharing a post, writing a review, such or other things as such like that, that's going to just be able to help us, because then those are their people, and so that's going to really exponentially move things forward, in theory. So building that launch team, and of course friends and family as well. I'm shooting for 300 people that would be willing to commit to writing a review, sharing X number of upcoming posts that we've got. And so we're as we're recording this, we're in the process of all of that. A second piece that I'm really excited about, in fact, I might just show you, I have it here, is I'm currently working with or getting ready to give the materials to those endorsers and the person who forwarded my book. And so actually right after this call, I'm actually getting ready to have that meeting, but we put together this box. And so it's got the arrows on the top of the box. And then I don't know if we can see the Arrow Striker and gloss. And then so what happens is, you open up the box, and we got a little letter from me.
Cool.
And then under it is the book. And
awesome.
So because I'm talking about striking your arrows and making a difference, then what I've done is we got a little $10 bill in a plastic sleeve, and that's going to be in the book. And so my letter basically says, hey, here's some fun. We want you to strike your arrows and give this $10 to somebody, buy a coffee for someone, give it to a student, pay for some, or, give $10 to a mom at the gas pump, just something kind of clever.
That's cool.
I'm kind of obviously showing my cards here. I'm hoping that it will stick out. So as I said, because, a lot of times, you get, and we even would get stuff occasionally where you want to send something to some influencers or people that we have. I'm going to shoot for some that I'm kind of like distantly connected with, acquainted with, and just to help hopefully spread the word. And so, in addition to the endorsers, and that's just kind of a way to say thanks and have some fun.
That's great.
Kind of something different. So that's something I'm pretty excited about.
Awesome. So it looks like influencer boxes. It looks like launch team. You said, was there one other thing that you said that that's an area of focus for the launch?
Let's see, what was the third thing I was going to say? Trying to blank right now. We're building out all of our tech stuff, our social media. We're putting together, coming out soon, a book trailer. It's going to be a really cool cinematic book trailer. And so we're going to try to leverage all of these pieces, and get the team helping us just to blast it. And so then at that point, and Facebook ads, we're going to do the Amazon ads, we're doing all the stuff that you normally would do. So that's probably nothing new under the sun, but hopefully all of that combined will give us a big impact.
Yeah. And so last couple of questions I have for you. So I know your dad mentioned that he's reading the book. Is that the new book? Is that the second edition, or he's reading the blue one, the first edition? Do you know?
Blue. Blue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh man, he's got the book. We gotta get both of you guys. So you don't have a copy
Man, we're
of
old
the
school.
second edition yet. Oh man, this is so much better. All right. I just checked while we were on this interview, and we've got one coming your way to
No, look at that.
I'll confirm the address right after this. After the interview.
Okay.
Not trying to give your address out.
Yeah.
So we got a copy of the new book published, and check out, because this will be very applicable. It'll be rolling right into your launch. So I'd recommend checking out.
Tell me.
There's a part, so there's the how to launch your book section, which is chapter 17, 18, 19, and 20. Chapter 20 on the road to your first 100 reviews. That'll be really, really helpful. And then those next few chapters around selling books after you launch. So that's one of the big differences of the second edition of Publish versus the first edition, is a lot more launch and sell more books related content. I got a copy coming your way.
Thank you.
It might be honestly, you might be faster to grab one off Amazon. My package is not coming in 2 days. But let me ask you this. You read the first edition. You, I think, posted about it online. What was your top one or two takeaways from that book that were helpful in writing this book?
Well, the one that I probably already articulated a little bit was the whole mind mapping process. I mean, that was game changing for me. And I don't, now that I say that, I don't know if that was more in the book or if that was more just some of the video content I've watched from you, but
it's in the book. Yeah, it's in the book. First
Okay.
edition and second edition. It's a much better, in the second edition, I call it the more writing method. More is an acronym for mind map, outline, rough draft, editing. It's just like a little bit of a sharper concept. But yeah, that was in the first edition.
Yeah. So that was just huge, man. I mean, and thank you for that, because it just, I couldn't believe how much easier it made it. And I wasn't as fast probably as you recommend. I took more time. I was like, well, let me just sit here and let's just think about this. And okay, now let's think about that. And, but it's amazing how much easier it made it to write. And, I've done, I went to Bible college, then I went to seminary, I've written paper after paper and all that. And, I was like, man, I wish I kind of knew that back then, because that would have probably made things easier. So that was a huge takeaway. Of course, we're doing the launch team like you talk about, but another thing I didn't mention, and this is probably another thing that would have answered your previous question too, is wanting to put like a launch party together. And so I'm actually pretty excited about that, trying to figure out how we're going to get that squeezed in here. But that's on the radar. And I thought that was just a fun idea. Because I told my wife the other day, it's like, it's just feeling all the pressure of, man, there's a lot to do to get this thing off the ground. But I told her, I said, I want to have fun along the way. I don't want this to be so burdensome that I lose the heart and passion for why I did it in the first place. And I want it to be fun. And the launch party is one of those ways where I think that can help keep the fun in perspective and know that, hey, this is an achievement. It's a great accomplishment, but it's also a fun journey. So really wanting to enjoy the journey along the way.
I love that. Well, Jonathan, this has been awesome. I'm excited for your launch. It's been cool hearing a behind the scenes of how it happened, how the book came together, and how you're launching the book. So parting question, where can people go to buy the book, to support the launch, and then maybe any other places that would be helpful for them to go as well?
Right. Thank you. Amazon obviously is the easy place to go. It's available there. We've got the paperback, the ebook, and the audiobook will all be available there if they pop on. And then our website is arrowstriker.com, and that's where we'll have some of the other resources as well. So either of those places is great.
Arrowstriker.com. The book is called Arrow Striker. Check it out on Amazon. Grab a copy. Or gift it to a friend. Jonathan, you're the man. Appreciate you.
Hey, appreciate you. Thank you so much for all you do.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for watching or listening to this episode of the Self-Publishing School podcast. I know there's so many places that you can be spending your time. There's other podcasts that you could be listening to, YouTube channels that you could be watching. So thank you so much. It means the world. Now, I want you to do 3 things right now if you found this episode helpful. All right, number 1, I don't know if you know this, but we've got a YouTube channel. It's a companion channel to this podcast. All the video versions of the episode are on the YouTube channel. So number 1, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Number 2, if you're listening to this podcast wherever, whether this is Spotify, Apple Podcasts, number 2, I want you to subscribe to this podcast right now so you don't miss a future episode. And then number 3, this is probably the most important, leave a review on the podcast. All right, reviews are super important and help this podcast get discovered by other people. So number 3, leave a review on the podcast. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next episode. If you're on the fence about scheduling a publishing consultation call with my team, maybe you're not quite ready for that, I've got some free training that I think will be really helpful for you. All right, all you have to do is go to register to sign up. Go to selfpublishing.com/free training. When you do, you're also going to get a free digital copy of my new book, Published. And on that training, you're going to learn the next steps, so how to implement with your book. So how to write, how to publish, how to launch successfully. So go to register right now at selfpublishing.com/free training. I'll see you there.